Rooster here with a new episode of Soloing Secrets, and this is yet another huge one. Michael Schenker, an essential, legendary, influential guitarist out the wazoo. I mean, he influenced everybody. And before anybody jumps in the comments section with the attempt of, tearing me a new one, declaring that Michael Schenker is a rock guitarist, let me remind you that back in the 70s, before we just had metal, we had heavy metal. And Michael Schenker is arguably one of the most important heavy metal guitarists, right up there with Tony Iommi and Ritchie Blackmore. Of course, Jimmy Page, the early originator with Led Zeppelin. But definitely, Michael Schenker's influence is everywhere. Not only the music and the licks and the solos and stuff, but his image, just the view and the sight of him, tall, skinny, blonde-haired German, wrapped in leather, rocking out and shredding on a flying V. People saw that on stage and it blew their mind. So definitely, there's no question. Michael Schenker is a legend. Much like we've done in other episodes in the Soloing Secrets series, when you're checking out a certain player, it's a great idea to go and check out their influences, the musicians and guitarists that influence them, because the licks and phrasing and playing habits, that pop up in their music can usually be traced back to their influences. So here's an image with some of Michael Schenker's elusive influences, and notice we've hit a lot of these guitarists in the Soloing Secrets series. And as far as some of the bands and musicians that Michael's worked with in his career, keep in mind his career started in 1966. And his first gig was with his brother Rudolph with Scorpions, and Michael was 11 years old. That's mind-blowing. That's very impressive. But his career goes way back. So Scorpions, then he left Scorpions, joined UFO. I think he left UFO, went back to Scorpions, and then started MSG, the Michael Schenker Group, which eventually I think he did reform or rejoin UFO somewhere in there again. And then Macaulay Schenker Group, it was still MSG, but different vocalist or whatever. And then he's joined and started the band Contraband. He's toured with Rat. There's a whole bunch of people that Michael's worked with. So here's an image with some of those musicians and groups that he's worked with in his career. And as far as Michael's actual soloing secrets, the things he typically likes to do when he plays a solo or a fill or a lick, and there's a lot here. He's a very melodic and expressive, feel player, bending and vibrato, minor pentatonics and hybrid pentatonics and natural minor scale, and he'll dip into like diminished tonalities with trills and stuff like that, a direct influence on Randy Rhoads, big time. But basically, here's an image showing some of Michael Schenker's elusive, soloing secrets. So the music and examples in this episode came from 3 Michael Schenker-related albums. The classic Strangers in the Night from UFO, the live album. I mean, that's definitely a historic Michael Schenker album. He's tearing it up from start to finish. Also, the first MSG album, the Michael Schenker Group from 1980, and another MSG album, Built to Destroy, from a couple years later. And I was tempted to tackle more albums and music from Michael, but this is going to give you a good assortment. We're going to hit some very specific things, some of the sequencing and kind of stretch pentatonics, and we're also going to investigate using the wah pedal as a tone filter. So definitely, if you're a Michael Schenker fan, buckle up, because here we go. Alright, with the opening, that was basically me playing around with Lost Horizons, the closing track from the Michael Schenker Group album from 1980. And as far as what I was playing over, I was using the MXR clone looper with that backing, and I'm kind of mimicking like the bass and the organ keyboard, doing this. Octave E, you're grabbing the C5 but spelling it out, change that C to C sharp but keep the G, and just move up this A sharp to B. In the first solo you hear Michael do this lower position bend. He grabs that A, bends it up to B a couple times. That's like a bend and release back to that A there. And then you hear him shift up here and he grabs this A and G and does like a little trill. and he bends that G up to A there. And then you hear this very, you know, staccato kind of blues lick like this. So right there, grab that D. And you're just kind of walking around in E minor pentatonic right there. But when you get back to that G note, you're going to bend that G up to a B, so 2 whole steps. And ends that with like this kind of legato, kind of a run right there. And you hear him shift up into this, grab that D and G, and then you're going to bend that A up to B. And then you hear this really high-pitched bend. Michael definitely loves these high bends, you know, the notes that only dogs can hear, like this. And he's kind of mimicking what he did down here, but there he's grabbing that D note, he's going to bend it up a whole step, bring it back, and then he bends it up 2 whole steps, like that. You know, big old bend right there. And then he starts doing, and he keeps going. I think I was just kind of jamming there at the end. But definitely check out Lost Horizons. That's a great song, and Michael is just so expressive and emotive and melodic right there. Great moment for sure. Up next, we're going to investigate some of Michael's legato moves, and he has a lot of these kind of fast, rapid, you know, hammer-on pull-off licks. And we're going to move this to the key of D, or D minor right here. And just think of D minor pentatonic right here, which Michael definitely loves, you know, the minor pentatonic. And if you really watch Michael play, you may notice he shies away from using his pinky. He uses his, you know, index, middle, and third a lot. And he stretches with that third finger a lot. And he'll stretch with it instead of using his pinky, you know, a lot of the time. So right there, you can practice the scale with your pinky, but to kind of give it like a Michael Schenker, you know, approved touch, you know, just try using your third, like your first 3 fingers, but use your third finger there. Like that. You could also substitute and use your middle finger there. But as far as these pull-offs, I want you to practice, you know, using your pinky and your third finger, even though Michael doesn't really use his pinky, but I want you to. So the first idea here, we're basically doing this, like a hammer-on pull-off on the high E. That kind of thing. Hammer-on pull-off, grab that C and go back to D, and you're going to do, like, just loop that over and over. Move to the next set of strings and do it again right here in D minor pentatonic. Go to the next set of strings, do it again right here. Do it again right there. Do it again right there. And it's just kind of getting you used to doing that pattern of notes. So use your pinky. And also try with your third finger there, like that. Now another sequence he likes to do is he'll do 2 pull-offs on the high E. Same notes pretty much, but a different sequence like that. So we're doing 2 pull-offs, you know, that F to D, grab that C to D. Right, use your pinky, also try your third finger. Go to the next set of strings. Probably saw I used, you know, both finger combinations like that and that. And then do the same pattern right here. Do the same thing right there. And the same thing right there. Now, as far as some of Michael's stretch pentatonic usage, he'll play licks like this. Right? And actually he would use like his third finger instead. I was using my pinky up there, but he would do maybe something more like... But my pinky just doesn't really like that. It wants to be, included or used right there. So you could do, you could do it with or without the pinky. I'm using the pinky just because I like using my pinky like that. And do the same idea over here, right, like that. You can actually hear Michael do a version of that lick in E. This is in Armed and Ready. And you just move everything we did up a whole step and you can do it like this. Right there. And you'll definitely hear a lot of licks like that from Michael Schenker. He loves doing that. Okay, up next we're going to basically discuss using a wah pedal as a tone filter, a signature thing in Michael Schenker's universe and his music. And, instead of sweeping the wah like Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan or somebody like that, there tends to be a lot of confusion as far as using a wah as a tone filter. So I wanted to include this, in this episode. So what we're going to do is hook up the wah. I'm going to use the normal tone that I had, but then I'm going to sweep the wahs, and I'm going to start with basically heel down and slowly move the wah forward or toe down until I find a sweet spot somewhere. And you're going to notice there's multiple sweep spots, depending on what kind of wah you have. Really the brand or the model doesn't matter that much because you're going to find sweet spots, as you start to sweep that wah. So I'm going to start heel down, slowly move to about middle position, and then slowly make my way all the way to toe down and kind of investigate those different sounds and tonalities. So check this out. So let me show you what I mean. So here's my tone without the wah turned on, like this. Now I'm going to turn the wah on, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my heel all the way down, right? Like I was talking about a second ago. So this is going to have a real bassy, weird kind of sound. It sounds kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is move the wah forward a little bit, and then it's going to clean up a little bit. You're going to notice like a difference in the tone, but I'm not sweeping the pedal. I'm just moving it ever so slightly and then leaving it alone. Just to kind of change the character. Hear that difference in the sound? Move it a little bit more. Now here it is, toe down, all the way forward. A little nasally and trebly. So right there you can see there's a range of different sounds like that. Like that. Now you might be wondering, like, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to use a wah pedal like that? But you got to think, like, if you're recording a rhythm track, right, and there's the rhythm guitar part, and you're recording, then you're going to add a lead on top of that to really change the frequency spectrum and your tone. If you use a wah like a tone filter like that, the rhythm's going to have a certain EQ frequency and sound, and then your lead on top of it's going to really pop and jump because it's radically going to be a different tonal spectrum than your rhythm part. You could use the same amp, same guitar, and just use a wah pedal, and it radically changes your tone and makes your leads and your licks and stuff really pop out and jump. For a song example using the wah as a tone filter like that, check out the live version of Lights Out from Strangers in the Night, and you can definitely hear Michael using the wah just like this. One more time right there. So he's basically grabbing, this, and you can definitely hear like that contrast in the tone right there, but he's grabbing this Definitely when you listen to that live version of that lick from that song, you can hear that wah character just kind of kicked on during that lead part right there. So if you start digging around through Michael's music, you're going to hear lots of different bending ideas. Unison bending, oblique bending, double stop bending, just, all kinds of stuff going on. And occasionally you might notice like kind of signature licks from other guitarists hiding in Michael's music sometimes too. This is from the outro solo from Victim of Illusion from the Michael Schenker Group, album from 1980. And this is a distinct Joe Walsh lick. Every time I hear it, I laugh thinking, is that Joe Walsh? And I love this song. Victim of Illusion is awesome. This one. Near the end, you're going to hear this really distinct Joe Walsh lick like this. One more time. So he's grabbing this, and then right there. Really expressive, funky. I always think Joe Walsh, but there's Michael's kind of Joe Walsh impression right there. Now another area of Michael's playing style, he likes to grab arpeggios sometimes, and this actually came from Into the Arena from the Michael Schenker Group album, and it's this D7 kind of based arpeggio, or D major, I guess, like that. But it's the way he's traveling, it's really interesting like this. One more time. And I tried to reflect, playing this like Michael, and not using the pinky so much like that. It's a really interesting, sequence right there. So it is D major bass. And he's doing just like first half. Right there, and then so one more time all the way through really slow. Really interesting arpeggio. So Michael definitely likes adding classical themes and motifs and these kind of sequences and melodic ideas, from classical music in his music. And this came from Captain Nemo from Built to Destroy, and it's this classical sounding, sequence like this. One more time. Like the sidestepping kind of interesting sequence like this. One more time right there. When you get to that D note, you're going to slide up to F and then come down. Time, do it really slow. Cool sequence. Last but not least, we're going to hit some of Michael's signature melodic phrasing, and this is everywhere in his music. He's so expressive and emotive and melodic. That's usually what grabs you right off the bat when you hear him play. Is that energy and power, and then you notice everything else going on, and then the next thing you know, you're obsessed like me. But his melodicism, it's so expressive and everything. And this is also from Captain Nemo. It's that real, kind of melodic, melody that comes in like this. hard to play, just melodic, ideas, but it's so expressive. It sounds like something you hear like on a violin or a cello or something, classical music. And we're just kind of moving around the fretboard like that. And then right there. Just kind of moving from one octave into the next. But I love when Michael plays stuff like that, because like I said, it sounds like something you'd hear a violinist or a cellist play. So cool. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Soloing Secrets with Michael Schenker. Definitely an essential, legendary, influential master of rock, hard rock, and metal. And definitely, his influence is everywhere. And for younger players out there, you may not really realize like how important he is. Right up there with Tony Iommi and Ritchie Blackmore and everybody else. And metal would be a lot different if somebody like Michael Schenker didn't exist. And there's just something about his playing, the influence, the music and everything, years ago. And it just kind of built and built and built. And of course, metal kept, changing and mutating after Michael Schenker's, debut. But he definitely had a hand as far as steering things a certain way, playing things a certain way, looking a certain way, and just being the badass that Michael Schenker is, a legend. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Land Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.